Thank you. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council for attendance this evening?
Mr. Davish?
Here.
Mr. Horniak?
Here.
Mrs. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Reeves?
Here.
Mr. Seaman?
Here.
Mr. Wallensack?
Here.
Mr. Zale?
Here. Thank you. Please note that all members of council are present this evening. Also joining us are Clerk of Council, Mrs. Tina Evans, Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator, Mr. Michael Beasley, our Law Director, Melissa Pura, Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman, Police Chief, Mr. Brandon Began, Assistant Chief Ryan Spangler, and our Assistant Fire Chief, Mr. Mark Mullins. Council, the first order of business would be the approval of the meeting minutes from the October 11th and October 25th, 2021 regular meeting of council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Seaman.
I move for passage of the regular council meetings from October 11th and October 25th, 2021.
Thank you, Mr.
As
Seaman.
presented.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reeves. Council, is there any objections? Hearing no objections, the meeting minutes from the October 11th and October 25th, 2021 regular meeting of council are approved as submitted. Council, we did not have a committee of the whole meeting last week. Therefore, we will need to add items 125, 126, 127, 128, and 129. So 125 through 129 of 2021 to this evening's agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Mr. President,
Mr. Seaman.
so moved 125 through 129.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Thank us. Second.
Second by Mr. Reeves. Council, is there any objections? Hearing no objections, items number 125 through 129 of 2021 will be added to this meeting's agenda. We will start with item number 125 of 2021, and I will remind council and the people that are speaking that please speak close to your mic so people can hear it in the audience, and it is picked up on the YouTube live stream. So item number 125 of 2021 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Fire Chief, Mr. Dennis Hartman. We're going to go directly to Assistant Chief, Mr. Mark Mullins. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President, Council. From time to time, these pieces of equipment, as they get used throughout the years, they get beat up pretty good, and it's just time to replace these pieces of equipment. They're about 5 to 6 years old right now, and just last week we had one that actually literally separated. So they get used quite often. It's just that time to start replacing these, and we get in the rotation of replacing about 5 of these about every 2 to 3 years. It's in the budget.
Thank you, Chief. Council, is there any questions for the administration for the item number 125 of 2021? Chief, is this something that was budgeted, planned? Did we know that this was coming up, or is this something that kind of came up all of a sudden?
It really wasn't budgeted, but it's something that we need to look towards probably the next 5 years to start replacing these on a regular basis. We have currently right now about 21 of these. And with the breakage of this one just currently, it just made us realize that, hey, we got to get on the ball and start getting these things replaced.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Council, is there any further questions on item number 125? Hearing no further questions, I'll sign item number 125 with ordinance number 125 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to issue a purchase order to DR Evil Police and Fire Equipment, 3203 Woodville Road, Northwood, Ohio, for the purchase of mobile data computers and related equipment in the amount of $32,175.86 to be used in the Oregon Fire Division and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Zale.
I move for passage of ordinance 125, 2021 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Zale.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 125 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Zale?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 125 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Move to item number 126 of 2021. Item number 126 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman. We'll go directly to Mr. Roman on this. Mr. Roman?
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is needed to proceed with the construction of the Cedar Point Development Parkway Road Infrastructure Improvement Project. This project will connect road and utility infrastructure between Parkway Road and Windscape Drive in our industrial area. We've been working on this project for 2 years. As most of you know, we did receive a grant, $2.7 million from the Federal Economic Development Administration to build this project. The bids we received were very competitive, and out of 8 bids, Underground Utilities was the lowest and best bid. Their bid was so low, it was actually about $400,000 less than the grant itself. We have requested to the EDA to see if we could extend the water and sewer on Wynn Road a little bit further. And we also included an alternate one bid, which is replacing the water line on Wynn Road from an 8-inch to a 12-inch, and that'll go from Cedar Point to Windscape Drive. So, other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 126 of 2021? Mr. Roman, after this is awarded, would this start next spring?
Yes, it'll actually, the administration side, construction, the ordering of will take place through December, January, and February, but yeah, I'd say early spring. It'll
And
start.
completion of
It's to be done by the end of next year.
end of next year?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Council, is there any further questions on item number 126 of 2021? Here, no questions. I will assign item number 126 with ordinance number 126 of 2021. And ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Accepting the bid of Underground Utilities Incorporated, 416 West Monroe Street, Monroeville, Ohio, for furnishing labor, materials, and equipment for the Cedar Point Development Parkway Road Infrastructure Improvements, EDA 0607901606152, and alternate number 1, Wynn Road Water Line Replacement. Authorizing the mayor, director of public service, and finance director to enter into a contract with said contractor and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Poliff.
I move for passage of ordinance 127 of 2021 and declaring, or I'm sorry, 126 of 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Poliff.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 126 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mrs. Polliff?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes.
Thank you. Please note that ordinance 126 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Mr. Roman, I do have another question on that. With questioning if we can add that water line as part of this, when do you think we'll find out if they will include that as part of the award?
Well, there's a few things that we have to follow through. I think even if they agree to let us use that additional grant money to extend those utilities, we'd still have to bid it out separately than to just do a change order. So it probably would have to be bid no matter what. And we hope in the next 2 months, we'll get that approval.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to item number 127 of 2021. Item number 127 of 2021 is also being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Public Service Director, Mr. Paul Roman. Mayor, do you want to take this?
I'll start. Mr. Roman is probably completed. You're aware of the town center roadways, and we needed some land from Charles Crest. We already have an agreement, but this kind of finalizes the things we need to complete the roadway. And run any details that has them.
Mr. Roman?
Mr. President, and what this is, we did pass a right-of-way acquisition agreement a couple weeks ago, but we discovered that there was an error in the area calc, and it did favor a little bit more compensation to Charles Crest. So we're correcting that with this ordinance. So the ordinance is really amending the agreement that was approved under ordinance 124. Okay, so if you look in this exhibit, you'll see the old area crossed out and the new area put in with the new compensation. Okay.
Thank you. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 127 of 2021? Here, no questions. I'll assign item number 127 with ordinance number 127 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to amend an agreement approved under ordinance 124 of 2021 with Charles Crest II Corporation, an Ohio nonprofit corporation, for the acquisition of temporary easements and a portion of property for the Oregon Town Center Project Phase 1 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak.
I move for passage of ordinance 127 of 2021 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dabish. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 127 of 2021 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Horniak.
Yes.
Mr. Dabish.
Yes.
Mrs. Polloff.
Yes.
Mr. Reeves.
Yes.
Mr. Seaman.
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck.
Yes.
Mr. Zale.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 127 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. We will move on to item number 128 of 2021. Item number 128 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Law Director Melissa Purpura.
Put them, Melissa, for these next.
Okay. We're going to go directly to Ms. Purpura.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is to enter into an agreement with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, also known as CJCC, with, for them to provide criminal justice information service through the Northwest Ohio Information System, also known as NORIS, in the record management support system to the Oregon Municipal Court. This service is essential to the operations and the functions of the Oregon Municipal Court. This is a yearly agreement that they enter into. You generally get one for police also, as that is their records management system. This is a one-year agreement from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022 in the amount of $52,446. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Purpura. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 128 of 2021? Hear no questions, I'll sign item number 128 with ordinance number 128 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into an agreement with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, One Government Center, Suite 1720, Toledo, Ohio, to provide criminal justice information service through the Northwest Ohio Information Systems and Records Management support for the Oregon Municipal Court for the period of January 1, 2022 through December 31, 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Zale.
I move for passage of ordinance 128, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Zale.
Second.
Second by Ms. Polloff. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 128 of 2021?
Mr. Zale.
Yes.
Mrs. Polloff.
Yes.
Mr. Dabish.
Yes.
Mr. Horniak.
Yes.
Mr. Reeves.
Yes.
Mr. Seaman.
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck.
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance 128 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Move to the last item for consideration and passage this evening, item number 129 of 2021. Item number 129 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Law Director Melissa Purpura. We're going to go directly to Ms. Purpura.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this is also another ordinance that is presented to council on a yearly basis. This is to enter into an agreement with the Lucas County Public Defender Commission. This agreement would be from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. As council is aware, Oregon is required to appoint counsel for indigent defendants. This is the most economical way for the city to do that, is through entering into these agreements with Lucas County Public Defenders Commission. They represent individuals that cannot afford their own attorneys, that they fit within a certain guideline that's required by the state. And the public defenders do represent these defendants for individuals who have been charged with state statutes and under the Oregon Municipal Code, anytime jail is a possibility. The amount for this contract is $39,692. This amount has been the same. There has been no change from last year to this year. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ms. Purpura. Councilors, any questions for the administration on item number 129 of 2021? Hear no questions, I'll assign item number 129 with ordinance number 129 of 2021 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into an agreement with the Lucas County Public Defender Commission to be in effect from January 1, 2022 to December 31, 2022 for counsel to represent indigent defendants charged with violations of municipal ordinances of the city of Oregon.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Zale.
I move for passage of ordinance 129, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Zale.
Second.
Second by Ms. Polloff. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call of council on passage of ordinance number 129 of 2021?
Mr. Zale.
Yes.
Mrs. Pollock?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Siemens?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 129 of 2021 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. That ends the items for consideration and passage this evening. We will move to the mayor's report. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President, and so I'll be fairly brief here. I do have some good news, but it's not a lot. We have received some commitments from places that serve food at our town center. We don't want to really announce any names yet because until they sign leases, we don't want to do anything to drive them away. But things we're looking up for a couple places and a couple more right there. So I seen Mr. Davish had things on his thing about recommending, or people recommending places. It's not quite how it works, but several of those things were mentioned. Some of those people will be very, very pleased. So I will say that much. And, but I don't want to do anything that would jeopardize those who have got to their first level of commitment. And with that, I would conclude my report. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. You did get the correspondence sent from Summer Vrieslar, and Summer was working here for approximately 4 years. Early on in her career with the Economic Development Foundation, we noticed the interest from some of the business and industry that she dealt with, took quite a notice to her and her abilities. And I told Mr. Beasley, I said, we'll be lucky to keep her for a while because there were several people interested in taking her away from us, which they did do. So I would ask council's concurrence in accepting the resignation from as coordinator, executive director of the Economic Development Foundation, effective November 30th, 2021. So she can get to the next step in her career.
Thank you. Council?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Horniak.
I move to concur with the mayor in accepting the resignation of Summer Vrieslar.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Council, any objections? Hear no objections, Mayor, council concurs with the acceptance of the resignation of Mrs. Summer Vrieslar.
And with that, now I will conclude my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Beasley.
Mr. President, members, just a couple of notes. We had an incident with a noticeable odor at Cedar Refinery over the weekend that we did talk to some of our residents on. I just want to let the members know we're trying to kind of re-examining our approach on some of those things. This wasn't an incident that had there's no hazardous material or nothing toxic, but it certainly was a noticeable odor. Our traditional practice is to not do our call system or kind of do a outreach when there's not something that is dangerous or, that calls for, evacuation or shelter in place orders. This was just something that was a kind of a foul smell. I think it's mercaptan for the engineers in the room, the product that they add to methane or natural gas to create a smell. That they had a release of that, and it's a non-toxic, not hazardous material, but it sure does smell. And we're kind of going to re-examine whether or not we do a call out. Obviously, when it's something serious, we go door to door. We let people know. We try to avoid confusion, not to bring attention to things where we're saying, "Hey, it's fine." But we think as we rehash this issue, we think we're going to try and ratchet up our communication on things like this in the future, and the folks that are downwind from it. Folks on the other side didn't notice any odors, but the folks on the other side had some noticeable events. We try and really be aware of these things because there's other times, those who've been around for a while remember, I think it's about 8 years ago or 7, 8 years ago when we had the problem with algae in the water and Toledo had their water shut down. No matter how many times we announced that ours was fine, people reacted like we were telling them that ours wasn't. And so it's hard to send that announcement that say everything's okay. Everyone still reacts to it in a challenging way. So we're going to, though, just based on some of the postmortem that we do after an event, we think we might kind of try and reach out and do some better communication on things like this next time. The other thing I just wanted to put a note out you're going to see Paul's shop and administration and the mayor's office really focusing on preparing to take advantage of state and federal funding opportunities in the coming year. We had an infrastructure piece of legislation get passed in Washington last week. And there is a lot of long-term, there's a lot of opportunities for local funding. Ohio is going to get a large fund, a slug of capital dollars are going to come in, both in the water and sewer side and in the roadway side. And we want to be ready to make sure Oregon is prepared to be good at making sure we deliver Oregon's share to maintain our infrastructure. Our shop has been very good at that historically. We just want to be ready. Those communities that are ready to leverage those dollars will succeed. The processes haven't been set up on it yet, but we're already thinking about it and being aware of those things. There's also a category of brownfield dollars that is benefits Lucas County and some statewide opportunities. We're looking at some things as well. There's no dollars in that bucket that allow us to deal with. This only deals with abandoned properties generally. But there's some things that we're going to take a look at and see if we can leverage as well. Final one, and Councilman Zale might comment on it when he comes around, but we are looking we're laying the groundwork for significant steps on our town center. And we've talked as a community about a dog park for a number of years. If you look at some of our neighbors, it is something that is kind of a piece of it out in the eastern side where there's a lot more open spaces. People don't look for it as much, but in the western part of town where people are more densely populated, a dog park is something that our residents have asked us about, and other communities are taking steps to create as well. So we're going to be having some meetings in the coming weeks and see if we can prepare to partner on some dog park opportunities kind of adjacent to our town center, which again, more of the things that kind of create quality of life and build community. That is something that's important to us. Both our leisure trails, bike trails, will take you there, and there's opportunity to go out and take your dog for a walk. And maybe some of the restaurants that have talked about coming here have talked in terms of opportunities for, maybe one of them have a dog-friendly patio or things like that. So some of the things I think kind of make community we're excited about. So we'll be bringing forward some plans on that in the coming weeks. We've had some local residents and express interest in even making contributions to help fund part of the capital of it as well. So we'll work through some of those things.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Ms. Purpura.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Purpura. Mr. Roman.
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Reeves.
No standing report for my committee, but I would like to personally thank Summer for her hard work and dedication, professionalism that she brought to that position.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Zale.
No report from my standing committee, Mr. President, but yeah, I want to thank Summer for bringing me into this dog park thing. No, it's an exciting idea. We had a good meeting about it. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to develop this. But other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Zale. Mr. Seaman.
No report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Pauloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing from my standing committee. I am going to miss summer with all this winter activities going on that I'm about to announce. This year, we have already kicked off our Winter Wonder Lights exterior lighting contest. This year, we are bringing in the fire department as our judges, and we're going to try some really great things with presentations of the prizes and stuff. Also, too, we're going to have a new contest also in with it called the Winter Wonder Trees Interior, where anyone who would want to join it could take pictures of their trees and submit them, and the police department will be judging those. And thank you, gentlemen, for helping out with all of the plans with this. And they too are going to have their own special way of giving out the prizes and stuff. The Winter Wonder Lights this year will have a shuttle 2 nights, the December 11th and December 13th. There'll be 2 shuttles for anyone in the community that wants to not go out and see them by themselves. And there'll be hot chocolate and music. And, it's just a really great thing to bring community support together with the city of Oregon. Also, our tree lighting is set for December 4th. And there's going to be a lot of activities like that. There's going to be dancers again. Santa's going to come in a 1950s truck. There's going to be a DJ, and I don't know if they're going to have food trucks or just hot chocolate and stuff, but it's a lot of vendors and a lot of people coming together to put that together. And so if you're around town and you see the city putting up lights, it's a great kickoff. We're going to be starting to have a lot of activity with Christmas going on soon. And I want to thank Hank Fox because he is truly the Santa of Oregon. He is the one that has put all of this together. And like I said, Summer had a lot of it to do with it last year, but so this year it's all on Hank and myself. So, but again, thank you to the police department. Thank you to the fire department. Look forward to having a great holiday season in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Beasley.
Just a note, Councilwoman Pauloff, just as a note, we do have a special request from the administration. We're hoping that you can get the leaves to fall before the Christmas lights go up. We're having a little problem getting them to be on schedule this year, so they keep stalling our pickup.
Mr. President.
Yes,
We're
Ms.
gonna
Pauloff.
be, we're gonna be really thanking the streets department for that. Because they're gonna be doing a lot of work preparing, not only getting decorations up and cleaning up leaves. I mean, it's a big chore because there are so many green trees still out there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Horniak.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report from my standing committee. I was going to ask for updates for town center development. Don't want to jinx that or ask for too much information on that. I'm sure as announcements are available, we'll be making those. I as well would like to thank Summer for her service and time spent with the city and wish her well on her next endeavor. So thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. I have nothing from my standing committee, but I did reach out to Mr. Beasley and had a conversation with him in regards to Tarta's passage of their levy, which would mean that at some level of service of Tarta would be coming into the city of Oregon. And I believe Mr. Beasley will at some point in time be reaching out to Tarta to try to figure out what that service is going to be and where they will be. But I know that TARPs and Call a Ride programs will at one point in time will be entering our community. So I know there has been a desire from some of the folks that need that service to have it in their community. So I think it'll be good for them. I don't know if you want to add anything, Mr. Beasley?
Mr. President, just as a note, yeah, we haven't had any conversations with Tarta. Now that it's passed, we will begin to have some of those conversations. Obviously, the greatest demand is, as Council President said, has been families with children with disabilities and or adults with disabilities, really, who have, I know some families that have told us they had to leave town because they didn't have the TARP service here and they wanted to stay in Oregon. So that's a plus. I know some of our very large hospital type employers are interested in that service. But again, among the challenges that Oregon, we're very spread out and we're hard to serve. So we'll see what their plan is. That's up to their board. And but we'll be in conversation and we'll keep the community informed as we go through.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. And that's all I have. So at this point in time, we will enter the public participation. Is there anybody else that would like to sign in to speak before council? All right, first person signed up to speak is Steve Salander. Steve, if you would like to come up, state your name and address for the record. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Steve Salander, address 2435 Eastville Avenue. For you, I just have, first off, just a few questions that some different citizens had sent me that they would like to have asked, just because for whatever reason, their own personal reasons, they did not feel comfortable in doing so. I'm going to read their questions word for word so that nothing is said that I'm spinning any questions or anything else, just word for word, and I'll leave it up to y'all to answer. I wouldn't have follow-ups because it's not my question. So the first couple questions here are from a resident by the name of Sandy. She was curious as to, well, I'll just read it. So why would any persons representing our community not accept or support the unanimous rejections of the wetlands proposal? Why is council not trying to have industrial interests be directed?
Excuse me, Mr. Slander.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Those questions like that, I don't know if there's, give me some guidance on this type of question on the floor of council. I'm asking for guidance.
Mr. President, and it's really up to the council, but it typically if someone has a question for members of council, they should send them a letter and ask them a question. It'd be the best way to do it about why they're supporting something or opposed to something. That's not, the city doesn't respond that way. Individual council members have to decide what they want to do, but that's up to the council.
Okay, all right, thank you. Steve? Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Mr.
Okay.
President,
Yeah, Mr. Reeves.
this is hearsay.
Yeah, it is.
This is hearsay.
Correct.
This has got to stop. Where just come in and, I can go to a meeting and write something down and say that my name's Julio,
So you're accusing.
and then go ahead and, write something. I'm just saying this is not the forum for what we should be doing right now. If this is how it's gonna be, I'm gonna ask for a motion to, adjourn. Because this is not what this isn't what council's supposed to be doing. But somebody coming up and saying that somebody asked them to give, that's all hearsay. It wouldn't stand up in court. It shouldn't stand up here.
All right, so I appreciate you accusing me of lying. Thank you. Well, then I
Mr.
have-
Solander, I'm not accusing you of lying. Yeah, I'm speaking. I am not accusing you of lying. You got to stop doing what you're doing. All you're doing is trying to rile up people and trying to make things worse. I would like to know what your end goal is.
My end goal is just to give people the opportunity to be able to have,
Then have those people come in.
some people don't feel comfortable in doing so. These aren't my.
Mr. Solander, I know exactly, I don't read your Facebook page. I don't care what your Facebook page says. I don't care what you post and things like that. You and I have had approximately 3 or 4 words since you started coming to council meetings. You asked me to sign your petition. That was the only time that you and I have ever talked. And I said, yeah, I'll sign your petition. And then you go out and start bad-mouthing me on social media.
When did I
So,
badmouth you?
excuse me,
specifically?
I'm not going to get involved in it.
asked
I
you,
want you to,
when
I
did
want you to
badmouth
please
you?
stop.
This is a question from me to you. When did I badmouth you?
Reeves must go. You don't even know me, sir. I don't know you, but I'm telling you, this stuff coming to council if it's something that's about what we've talked about on our agenda, or what's on the agenda, or something that is pressing, an issue that is going on that you might want to understand something, I have no problem with that. But just to come in here, and I got a couple people they just don't want to talk to me, come to the council meeting. I'd rather just have Mr. Solander. That's all hearsay. So if you don't have, in my humble opinion, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's not your turn to speak.
Second.
First of all, I am not bullying anybody. We have been, the bullying started probably back in May. I'm making a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second, so I have to ask if there's anyone that objects. I
Mr. President,
understand, but I
Mr.
am
President.
obligated with a motion and a second.
Mr.
but
President,
I have
Mr.
to go
President,
through that. I
Mr. President,
understand.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Zale.
in the heat of the matter here, and I appreciate what Mr. Reeves just said. And the point he was trying to make to you, Mr. Salander, is it's a legal term, hearsay, and what you're doing is hearsay. It has no standing. And part of the thing that he's bringing up is when you make Facebook pages encouraging people to write you questions because they fear retaliation. I brought this up to you and to you before, twice. Who's ever retaliated against you on council? or anybody else. Now, you're out of order. You're out of order. Who has
Who
retaliated?
Hey.
Who has
stop,
retaliated?
stop. Let the two of them communicate.
Who has retaliated?
Well, friends of the mayor has directly, and you can't
Wait
tell me
wait
that
a
they're
wait a
not
minute. No,
friends of the mayor.
friends of the
when
mayor have
they-
retaliated against.
they- I'm answering your question.
Go ahead.
Would you like me to answer or do you want to interrupt?
Yeah, I'd like an answer.
Because when somebody rides to and from a meeting with the mayor and then threatens us, I'd say that's pretty straightforward right there.
Well, who threatened you?
PJ Cap family.
How did he threaten you?
Were you not here? think
I was here. I didn't see any threats.
When he said he'd meet us out in the parking lot?
That's
That
not a
wasn't-
threat.
Very well.
Steve, you have any questions of your own?
I actually did.
What,
If I may ask,
okay, I get, I'm obligated by Robert's Rule of
understand.
Order that I have to ask if there's any objections to.
I object.
You
Mr.
object.
President, I
Yes, Mr.
also
Orr.
object.
Okay.
As long as the questions are firsthand coming from Mr. Solander, then I believe they're appropriate.
I
and
did
believe we
I
have a
do have a
second
few there
person to
directly
speak.
from me.
So I would object as well.
Steve, ask your questions, please.
All right, so just for some clarification on non-emergency, because there has been some confusion, it seems, as far as what number people should be calling. Can you clarify, please? There was, I saw, I think it was from the police officer, their page, but about a 419, I think it was 215, I believe was the number, or the 419-698 number. So maybe some clarification just.
I'll ask.
on that.
Chief?
Mr. President, the official number we posted on our Facebook page, I believe it ends in 8443. It's either 215 or 245. I'm sorry, 255-8443. You can also get to that number because we've had people in the past call the 7064, which was our original non-emergency phone number. When you call that, it says you can hang up and call 911 if it's an emergency. If it's a non-emergency, you can hit a button and it will take you straight down to the cog. So that way, everybody who is used to calling our previous number still has access to go down there.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. The other question I just had, actually, you somewhat addressed it, Mr. Beasley, regarding the smell that was going on. Because I thought, don't we have I think maybe we're kind of talking about it vaguely, but the text
Sure.
message.
Mr. Beasley?
We traditionally use that only when we're telling somebody they have to act. You know, like there's a water water cutoff or a water emergency or a traffic problem. We don't traditionally use it to say everything's fine. Because when we have in the past, when we first started, we ended up with, seemed like more confusion. We visited after the event this last weekend. We think that there are some circumstances where we should trigger it for that. We know based on our personal conversations with individuals that, hey, what is this? And we think it needs a little more clarification. Obviously, it wasn't a city incident, but we're in touch with the folks in those circumstances. And we think that we can try some better ways to communicate on it. We think the way it worked, we don't think it worked very well. We're going to try
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, because I know people are somewhat
Sure.
panicked because of the smell and, you know. how
Yeah, it was a noticeable.
Right, right. And I just thought, with the way non-emergency and the way 911 is right now,
Sure.
just to kind of take some pressure off there. So just a
It's
question.
the
I had,
same. The
so.
calls come in the same way. but
Yeah.
From our end, but just in terms of letting people know, especially if it's over a weekend, it's harder because we're not sitting here at our desks typically, and that's where we had the problem. So, but
Okay.
we're working on setting up a system that deals with that. It's hard to know when to trigger it. No systems,
Sure.
no events are ever the same, but
Mhm.
we try to follow what's considered best practice protocol for events like that.
Yeah.
But there's always one that, doesn't fit in the lines as well.
Sure. Okay. That was the only other question I personally had.
And
so
Steve,
thank you.
if somebody has a question,
Yep.
have them feel free to email us
Okay.
and we'll respond to them
Okay.
via email.
That'd
That would be a
fine.
good way to communicate with us, and if they don't feel comfortable coming into council, have them email and we'll make sure that
Fair
it's
enough.
answered.
Okay.
All right,
I
thank you,
can do
Steve.
that. I'll direct them to that.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Beth Ackerman. Mrs. Ackerman, would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Beth Ackerman, 931 Bury Road, Oregon. Well, here I am intimidated and nervous because of the palpable hostility that occurs here thanks to some of the council people. So if anyone's in any doubt that anybody's ever extremely, let's just say, just intimidated, this intimidation, okay? The hostility, the machismo, it's, you know, the reason Steve did what he did, when I read it online, was he wanted people that are watching at home or were able to watch these proceedings, get their question answered in a way that everyone could see the answer, hear it and see it. And that was what was his motivation behind it. My first meeting here was June 14th, I believe. I don't know what was going on in May for you. But I gotta tell you, it is, there's something's gotta change with it, that this is a public, you guys up here to hear each other speak, or you up here to, for the public to know what you're doing, or why do you bother to record these things if you don't want the public interaction? But it's very, very intimidating. And I'm when I think my skin has gotten a little thicker and I'm getting used to it. I just wanted to ask you, Mr., and this is not hearsay because it's in the press, November 1st, 2021. So, I know I had sent a Freedom of Information Act request to Ms. Purpura about the things that, you know, clarification of the comments that you made to the press last week. And I just was asking for some clarification. I asked you, you gave me a wetland map, a federal wetland map, Ms. Purpura. I was looking for one that was the Oregon wetland map and what designation those are, what category those are. I maybe I wasn't specific enough. I am, I wanted to ask you, sir. Oh, wait, if you guys are.
Ask a question about what you're saying.
Okay. I learned that from Ruth Price. Well, I'll just wait if you guys are talking. All right, you said, however, I must also emphasize that Oregon law and Ohio law require us to consider any zoning proposal brought forward by an Oregon property owner individually. I wanted to ask you, sir, what Oregon resident or property owner, not a resident, I know she said, brought forth a zoning proposal to you that would have caused you to use Oregon law and Ohio law to consider it?
Mr. President, if I could.
Ms. Purpura.
Thank you. You had asked under the Ohio Sunshine Laws for records, just so you understand that any information you request that is a document or a record that the city has, I can supply to you. What I cannot do under Ohio law is to make records.
Okay.
And what you were asking, I would have to make a record. If I don't have a record or
Right.
the
Oh,
city
yeah.
doesn't maintain it, that's not something we create. It's not something that the city of Oregon or any other municipality is required to do under Ohio law.
So-
With regards to what the mayor may think or his feelings or his decisions, that's not a record. So that's not something I can supply to you. As far as the law that he was referring to you, as I responded, that's under the
Army Corps of Engineers.
that is correct. So that's not something that Oregon is the keeper of that record. So you would have to make a public records request to them. So I can comply with your records request for records or documents that the city is the holder of. For something that we are not, I can't comply with it. Not that I'm not trying
Oh,
to
no, that's
work
why
with
I
you.
thought it'd be best is to ask him directly, since he's the one that said it. I could just ask him
But I think just so that you
for
understand.
future
yes.
requests. Okay.
And when you made the request for any individuals that have brought zoning proposals, that's overly
That's really broad, right?
Just because since the city has been in effect, there have been things that have gone in front of our zoning appeals board. And so that's why I said if it's something that you are requesting a certain time period, I would be happy to look at that. But it just can't be overly broad in order for the city to comply with your request, just so you
Yeah,
understand what
thank you.
the sunshine laws actually require the
Well, that's
city
right.
to
I
do
mean,
or not do.
I just thought there had to be probably something in writing for, all these maps to be created and all this planning to be done, that there had to have been something that got approved or written or spoken about, or what set this in motion. There's quite a lot of work involved in moving utilities and, changing the infrastructure and planning how anybody would drive to. So I just had a simple question.
Yeah.
Who requested
And-
the zoning change? Because I missed the meeting.
And I know Ms. Ackerman
If
went,
there was a,
There's no one.
There was no zoning.
There was no.
there was no zoning change.
There was no request.
So were you misquoted?
No. I said, if they did, we would be required to entertain their request.
Okay, so there never was a request.
That's correct.
Yeah, we have you on tape from one of the previous meetings saying that a landowner came to us. He came to us and said that there was a zoning change. So
I
what,
realize we
okay.
put things certain ways.
No, I know. Well, I just want to know then, like, what precipitated all of this into motion? That's all I'm asking, is that
I don't see.
you guys just woke up one morning and decided you'd reroute
Mr.
sewer
Beasley,
and-
can you take a?
Let me answer that. I think from the first day this issue ever was presented, we made it very clear that we had a request from the economic development agencies of the state in Northwest Ohio if there was some property that we could consider for large sites. We said we would consider it. We would look at some options, and that's exactly what happened. No one made a zoning request. This is no different than what we said the first time we talked about it. It's been the same. I think the mayor told you the same thing when he came to your house, is my understanding.
Okay,
So-
so what he said in here as far as, I mean, it's in the press. I'm just asking for clarification. If it wasn't
It's
accurate.
pretty clear. Everything in there, everything I
my-
said is very clear.
I have never once supported new industrial zoning east of Stadium. However, I must also emphasize that Oregon law and Ohio law require us to consider any zoning proposal brought forward by an Oregon property owner individually. It was a weird thing to say if it didn't occur.
Not, I don't see it as weird. Maybe to you it is.
All right, so as of right now, there's nothing happening out between
That's correct.
Bury and Brown
correct.
and, okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
How about you? Are you
Not
aware?
that I'm aware of either. The same,
Because you're the one on most of these emails and stuff back and
It-
forth, not him.
it is the same exact thing we said months ago. A project came in. They asked if we had some property to consider. We said we would take a look at some property to consider. It turned out we didn't have the property, enough interest in the property to do it. I've had no conversation since then about it, other than here.
So the only reason this is perpetuating is he made it very clear that he was going to pursue an industrial area
I
out there.
did not say that. Did not say that. You said that. What I said
I
is,
asked you, were you going to? You said yes.
I did not say I would pursue it. I said I would not say I wouldn't entertain the concept of developing the right type of business there. Beth, we were looking, we have people complain. All right, there's people that are against this. I understand that. I understood that you were right from the get-go. But I also, we're faced with, I watched when the school board put on school levies and they failed. I watched people complain about school levies. What are you gonna do to stop that? So this was one project that could have brought in $5 million annually to the schools and $5 million
It was
annually.
4 million.
5 million.
Now it's 5 million.
It's
Okay, Hal Gregory
five-
said 4 million.
$5 million annually. If you want to tell the story, I'll let you tell it. You
No,
know
I
it.
just
You don't
know
even have
that
to come
he
here and ask.
addressed,
All right,
addressed.
let's,
All right, so-
okay.
so- no,
I was
Let's,
just asking
let's,
him to
let's,
clarify
move,
what
let's
he
move
said.
forward. Let's
when-
move forward.
When
Okay.
we're looking
We
at
can't.
people that we could have got that type of money to this city that encompassed nearly 21,000 people, not just your little group of a few hundred. We would be wrong not to at least entertain the concept of an option to people. You go and say, we've made zoning changes. We spent $4 million. We haven't spent one dime to this day.
We have not spent a dime. And you spent more
Did you
money.
use taxpayer dollars to have Mr. Roman's office create these
No.
maps or did that
Mis-
just?
Mr.
Did you
Beasley,
do this in your own spare time?
Mr. Beasley, go ahead.
Mr. President, members, just as it clear, our staff, our departments, we have internal capacity to do maps, we have internal capacity to do engineering, and yes, we use our time to work on things like that all the time.
Mr.
We're
Be-
doing a whole bunch
Mr.
of them now.
Mr. Beasley, when somebody presents or somebody approaches, is it natural for us to do this for any person that comes forward with a potential for any development that we would provide mapping, laying out of utilities?
We do
It
it all the
happens
time.
quite frequently.
We do it all
Prior
the
to zoning
Every resident.
changes?
Every property. owner.
Yeah, because some,
Also true,
yes.
Thousands of those maps where someone asks, what does it take to do a sewer? Or what could we do for drainage improvement?
What,
Or, what would it increase water pressure?
what would it take to put a 24-inch non-potable line from Cedar Point all the way?
Yeah, all the time.
I just think
I'm
to change
telling you that.
such a drastic change of land use, before you put all that effort in there, I know you don't have to tell us anything,
I'm an
right?
engineer and I'm asked an engineering question, and it's my job to answer it. How's it not?
So I just have to keep coming back to ask you what you're doing
Do
out
whatever you
our
want.
way, and that's the only way we find out?
Ms. Ackerman,
Let me tell you one more-
at this point in time, I know of nothing.
Well, you
That
guys
is it.
knew a lot of the time you guys didn't know of anything all
Yeah.
along, and then you knew and you didn't know, and
Yeah.
that's why I asked these two, because
Mi-
there's no.
Mr.
way
President,
to
If we
know.
would have got to
Mr.
the next
Mr.
step, they
Beasley,
would have had to know.
Mr.
Beasley,
Let me
Yeah,
try
when you're
something
ready
and see if I
to
can,
go.
maybe I have totally failed to ever say this clearly enough. This city can never change a land use without repeated public hearings and public discussion over a period of months. It can never happen. It cannot happen under state law, under local law. If someone requests it, we have to consider it and take it on a case-by-case basis. That's the law.
Okay.
If there will be many times, though, where someone will come to us, sometimes it's Oregon property owners, more often than not, it's an Oregon property owner, will call us and say, could I do this on my property? Could I do that? Could I now have, it's residentially zoned, what if I changed it to agricultural?
I
What-
could put in a pig farm and
Yeah.
you guys would draw up all the plans and
uh,
then
well,
we tell the
but-
public about
the
it
infrastructure.
sometime.
Infrastructure, but that when that happens, that happens all the time. It is normally the case, though, especially on a job creation opportunity, people ask us, what could this be? Could this happen? How hard would it be to do this? We routinely answer. And we do that not knowing whether and I would say 98% of the time, or certainly 90% plus of the time, the projects never happen. It's a discussion, people ask and they wonder.
Okay.
We are interested in, and we feel it's our job to present those opportunities should they mature. And the community may say, we're not interested in it. And we said here at more than one meeting, the exact same thing. When Walmart came to town, they checked to see what sort of infrastructure it would take to bring in Walmart. We had numerous raucous, noisy public hearings. The engineering department did its work and the same with Bay Park Hospital. The community decided to go forward. The other one was when Home Depot was proposed to go on Navarre, and there was going to
Had
be,
nothing to do with it.
but not you didn't think about it. And the Target store that was going to go next to it, and the Outlet restaurants, the community had the
A
engineering.
commercial in a commercial corridor.
Yeah, and the I mean, I was just saying. Yeah,
Oh, I know.
but what took place, let me say it, because it doesn't seem to get through to you, know how often we say it. Let me try it again.
No.
Let me try it again. Let me try it again. We get requests, the engineering shop and our shop go through and say, what would it take to put that Home Depot store in there? We draw up, here's what the water and sewer would look like. Here's my to go. We go back and forth. We do this with the knowledge that the project may never happen. That at some point, someone decides they're interested in moving forward with it. And if more often than not, someone asks us these questions and we never hear from them again. They disappear. They move to, Wisconsin or wherever it's going to be. On other occasions, in the case of, for instance, the Home Depot, the community went through a set of public hearings. Before they could change the land use or permit it, they'd have public hearings and the community didn't want to do it. Council voted no or put conditions on and said no. So That is a normal part in virtually every community. So if you're asking, when will you know? If someone with property in Oregon wants to do a zone change, no one can do it, no administration can do it without going through a repeat, multiple public hearing process. That's just the way it works.
Okay, so but back to my question to him was, so no one has ever come to you and requested a possible zoning change or came to you for this land use change? No one's ever done that? In regards to the specific property bounded by Brown Road, Beery,
No one
Route
ever
2.
asked for a zoning change. That is correct. What they did do is say, do you think you could assemble land knowing that it would require a zoning change? I'm sorry, I'm gonna speak closer to the mic.
Thank you.
That they knew it would require those same public hearings Mr. Beasley just mentioned. But could we even get that far? Was it even conceivable? He said, I don't know. I'll go out and see. I'll see if there were people willing to sell their land, which there was. And then it never got that far. It never got that far that anybody requested a zoning change.
But there was no Oregon property owner that asked
We are not required.
consider a zoning proposal.
That's correct. No.
Okay.
And
That's all. I'm
it
just
doesn't have
checking.
to be a Oregon resident to request a proposal.
A property owner, Oregon
Property
property
owner,
owner.
of owner of the property, yeah. But no one ever did that. But we still benefited, even though we knew the chances of getting a project like this was very remote. But we gained a lot of exposure to our other sites. We work countless hours every day. Today, what is probably 3 hours, seeing how we could assemble land in our industrial
Yeah,
area.
that
Every
135 acres sitting there, just sitting there. I don't know what
No,
happened to
it's
the
not just
greenhouse
sitting there.
thing.
It's
but-
not just sitting there.
No,
We have-
Kevin's farming it, but
No, but we have.
residentially zoned.
It's residentially zoned.
Kevin,
a lot of it-
Kevin Fox is farming?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that
And-
doesn't stop you guys.
Well,
In your mind.
At,
All right, well-
at this point in time,
Yeah.
is
I
there
won't
anything
keep
else
I
that
won't
you
keep
have?
Yeah, I just was curious because when I read it in the paper and based on previous things you had said,
Everything
I was
in
very
that paper is
curious.
very accurate.
But
On-
honestly, I really do hope you guys find, you see it from your side of the desk, but we see it and hear it from our side. And I don't know if you guys know it or not, but it's like, it's, I don't even know if I could have you understand it, that it is the average citizen. This isn't our house. This is your house. You've made that clear. This isn't our house, the citizens. You guys got to change that image.
It's not your house. It's all the people here's house. And we try to
Exactly,
recognize them
exactly.
all, something you don't do.
I don't, well,
Mrs.
obviously
Ackerman,
you're voting.
Ms. Ackerman, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you.
Well, you just have to, things get slipped through. You got to kind of.
Nothing got slipped through ever.
At this moment, I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Second by Mr. Davish. Any objections? Hearing no objection, meeting adjourned.